Okay, fourth grade. This is part two for this week. We're this week, week 7. Next week, week 8. Wrapping up our school year. We're practicing things you can do this summer. The first video we dealt with IXL and iReady, and this is part 2. So this video, I want to encourage you to do a couple of projects at home this summer, and these are just a couple ideas. There are a lot more out there online. See Pinterest. So one project idea would be help around the house, or use current flower beds and garden beds and work on area and perimeter. So in this case, what you would do is take a measuring tape, so something that measures linear measurements and linear, otherwise known as line measurement. And you go out and you can measure the different lengths of flower beds or garden beds, heck, even furniture, and measure the length and the width of these beds. So you might measure how long a bed is, how wide a bed is, and measure all 4 sides, right? Now, I didn't do a very good job drawing that, but that would be a rectangle right there, right? So if you measured, pick a measurement. So there are a couple kinds of measurements you can do. The first one is you could do a U.S. customary measurement, and customary measurement is what we use here in the United States. In the customary measurement system, you're going to find things like feet. You're going to find things like inches. You're going to find things like yards, miles, things like that. Okay? So if you're going to measure a garden bed, you probably want to measure it in feet, possibly inches. Yards, you might be able to if they're larger, but I'd probably stick to feet or possibly inches. So in a little project like this, all you would do is get a measuring tape or some sort of measuring device that you can measure linear measurement, line measurement, and measure the length and the width of different beds. And you might find that it's maybe your bed is 11 feet long, and maybe it's 7 feet wide. And what you can do is, if you want to do a little sketch on like a notepad or something, maybe sketch out your rectangle, you could find things like area and perimeter of the shape. So what you would do is take the perimeter, all you would do is add up all the sides. So you would add up the 7, the 7. This is all work we did a couple weeks ago on IXL. So you'd add up all your sides, and the perimeter of this bed would end up being 14 plus 22, which is 36. My brain's not working this morning, but I'm pretty sure it's 36 feet. Okay? Or what you could do is you could do the same activity, but instead of doing perimeter of your different flower beds or garden beds in your house, you could do the area of it. So you take your 7 feet, and remember area, the formula we use for rectangles and squares, for 4-sided shapes, rectangles and squares, what we do is we do the length times the width. So we do the length times the width, and we come up with 77 feet. Not just 77 feet, 77 feet squared. So kind of how many 1-foot squares are in this bed here, okay? That's one possible project you could do. Okay? A second possible project you could do is you could work with baking. So this is definitely ask parent permission. Work with your parent. The great thing about doing different measurements, these different measurements are called capacity, boys and girls, because what you're doing is using an amount, capacity. What you're doing is you're finding that 2.5 cups, a cup is a measurement for a specific amount of an ingredient or an item. So you might have 2.5 cups, and what you're going to do is you could go through and make the recipe, and then work on things for capacity and do things like this, where you actually erase that, where you take the recipe maybe and then you double the recipe, otherwise known as times 2, or even triple the recipe. Well, if you double the recipe, what you're really doing is doing each one of these ingredients times 2. Okay, so you can work with fractions on how to multiply. That'd be a great project to work on at home with a parent, an older sibling, an aunt, uncle, something like that, okay? The great thing is, when you're done, you can eat your product. So if you're working on baking, maybe it's, as this recipe shows, sugar cookies. You could work on, maybe baking the batch as is one week, and the following week work on doubling it. Or instead of doubling the recipe, I'd also recommend sometimes working with cutting the recipes in half. Okay, so another cool thing you can do with math when you're dealing with capacity. Okay, so project one, go outside, do some measuring, or even inside, and measure some things around your house to find area and perimeter. Project two could be working on measurements with fractions and working on capacity. Okay. Number three is making change. This is a one we do in fourth grade typically this time of year. And so you could do either A, as practice at home, or actually do takeout from a restaurant, and actually you are the one that maybe makes the change or pays and know how much change you're going to get. So it's pretty simple. All you would do is this is a sample menu I found online. All you do is first, when you do menus, boys and girls, if you see a price of $9.95, you want to estimate that to the next whole dollar, which is $10. This is $6.95. The next whole dollar is $7. So basically, it's almost $7. That's why I would estimate that as $7. Okay. Maybe practice ordering. And when I say ordering, I'm talking about just practicing and role playing with a parent. Practice. Say I'm going to buy these 5 items, Mom, and then so let's say you buy, jumbo crab cakes and steamers. You get a couple of those. You would add those up. Those are about $10 a piece. Let's say we get mozzarella sticks, and then maybe a Caesar salad at $7. Maybe you get these 4 items, add them up, and you would get $34. And then your task would be, okay, I know I'm spending about that much. Well, if I gave them a $40 bill or a $50 bill, how much change would I get? So what you're doing is practicing making change from bills. I know a lot of adults nowadays use these little plastic things called credit cards. That's not what we're practicing here. We're practicing using actual money. If you don't want to estimate and you really want to get good at adding decimals, what you could do is actually take the amounts, $8.95, maybe for some fried calamari, squid, and then actually add decimals and make change. That could be another easy activity to do from home. So in recap, if you're looking for some summer projects to continue math, little projects like this are really easy to do. And you can do some measuring at home. I recommend maybe getting a piece of paper, writing down, doing little sketches of what you're doing. You could do some baking with someone at home to work with measurements of capacity. And if you want to double the recipe, all of a sudden, if you double recipes, remember you're taking here's 2.5 cups, 2 1/2 cups. If you're doubling the recipe, well, now you're practicing multiplying mixed numbers times whole numbers. Or a third project could be making change by getting a menu and practicing how to, get an estimated order amount, and then making change from that. So those are 3 quick projects you can do. I know on that last one, the question that pops up in every student's head is, well, what about tax? That is something we pay in our state. You'll deal with paying taxes on things in, I believe, 6th grade math. So that's a year or so away. So if you want to tinker with that, parents, go right ahead. But other than that, there are 3 project ideas you can use to do a little workaround this summer. All right, thanks, y'all. Have a good day.